Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another round of the ESL UK, or the UK Masters, not the ESL, the multiplayer UK Masters. I am David Whyms, and alongside me is stepping in Tadhg, Celtic Tiger Brennan. Tadhg, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well. I'm looking forward to a pretty good game. The last Irish hope, effectively, unless, of course, they go forward, where they'll continue to be the last Irish hope. But have to win this game first, see how they're doing. Single elimination, so a lot to play for.
Yeah, certainly. Ferocity, the last Irish team left in it, coming up against Arctic Storm here, who hotly tipped as one of the favourites in this qualifier, most certainly. So definitely a big challenge for them. And straight into the bans coming here, flying in pretty quickly. See the Aryan Cannon taken away by Arctic Storm. The responses coming in, Varus and Thresh, the first two, by Ferocity.
Yeah, you see the Ari Cannon going right back to the last game Ferocity played against Enclave. Cannon was this massive split pusher, Ari a really solid carry from the mid lane for Howl, taking them both away from this Ferocity side and then following up with the Blanc to boot.
Yeah, two bans away from Hell in that mid lane. Last one is going to be the Graves, taken away from Sankus, so a bit of a spread in the bans, a couple towards that bottom lane, so definitely wary of those areas of the map are Ferocity. We'll see what Arctic Storm choose to go with for their first pick here, hovering the Lulu, and that's something we do often see first picked whenever it does get through that ban phase. Very good general, and Crossfair wanting that pick in that bottom lane.
Yeah, fairly dominant laner in the bot lane and really good in terms of just utility later on, so not surprised to see the Lulu first picked, generally this massive first pick priority. So again, would expect something like the Caitlyn here. Asarat has played it in all their games so far. Used to be a massive Caitlyn and Jinx player. So not too surprised to see him lock that in. Followed up with an Ivern from XJ. A little unlike his usual playstyle, but definitely a solid pick.
Yeah, like you said, not something we normally see out of XJ, but ever since those Ivern buffs a few patches ago, he has been something that we've seen quite often fallen back upon at all levels of play, really. So going to go with that. The response will actually be the Lee Sin for Sankus here, so taking one of XJ's more stable champions, I think, but certainly something that you can have a big impact on, especially proficient at the champion. Gragas was also locked in. The response looking to be Shen, actually, from Ferocity here, so that's looking to be the top lane matchup we get, and the Nami hover might be what Blaze is looking to pick into that Lulu. Back to the Karma, could go either way.
I would expect the Nami here, but he goes for the Karma anyway, having played a little more Karma, I suppose, as a player. However, Nami often picked into the Lulu more often than Karma, at the very least, considering a lot of people consider Karma something of a budget Lulu in that bot lane, but teams up really well with the Caitlyn in terms of poke, so probably what they're going for there.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be the Vladimir actually taken in the last rotation here. Probably going to that mid lane for Vaughn. And the Xayah, okay, that's actually something the first time we've seen in spite of all the games yesterday. Xayah and Lulu going to be the bot lane pairing for Svene and Prosper on Arctic Storm side. Tadhg, what do you make of the Xayah pick, considering it's something newer to the top level competitive scene?
Xayah is actually really strong in general. Has some really solid staple builds. People have moved away from that on-hit build and come back to this kind of crit-based Essence Reaver build, so you can just spam out massive amounts of feathers and then the E just shreds through a team fight. So much like Twitch, it's something that in a team fight you have this mass amount of AoE, really nice to consistently set up feathers and just fly through with people. And I think that goes really well with the Lulu, considering you have awesome self-peel as Xayah. So overall, I'm hoping for massive amounts of team fight damage, while also, if left alone, can do huge amounts in the 1v1.
Yeah, definitely. The last pick going to be coming in here for Hell is that Orianna, which the control mage is not something we see that often from him, but he has slowly incorporated a couple of those champions into his playstyle here, looking for that big team focus. And given the damage split, right now Ferocity looking to put a lot on Asarat to be doing the big source of damage in those later stages.
Yeah, especially considering you have Shen, Orianna, and Karma, and even Ivern, actually 4 shields.
Yep.
So you're looking at something of a hyper carry comp, and you put that on the Caitlyn, who has this massive amount of range. And I think I was watching some streamers earlier, and I think pretty much everyone is in agreement, and at least on the current patch, Caitlyn is the late game carry.
Yeah, definitely. Caitlyn, like I said, those headshots always mean that you can put out quite a bit of damage with those crits later on in the game. Into the Xayah, though, will be an interesting one to see how they play around, especially the mid-game, when I think the comp from Ferocity might just be short a little bit in terms of the damage front. Orianna can be doing pretty well, but between the two of them, they're not really going to be able to take over these big fights, and might be the opportunity for Arctic Storm in those kind of situations to win out big.
And one of the things to note as well is often when you have things like these style of comps, you want the Orianna to get slightly ahead early so you have a bit of backup magic damage. However, not taking Ignite into the Vladimir, again, not taking Ignite in someone who can't really kill him anyway, will mean that very, very little kill pressure in that mid lane. So would expect very passive mid lane and probably a more active bot lane.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen how go for the more defensive summoners in previous games in this tournament, so sticking with it there, like you said, no Ignite across the board means it could be tough to deal with that Vladimir sustain at all points during the game, really. So I imagine they'll be reliant on especially Aserad at one point getting that Executioner's Calling to just try shut Vaughn down a little bit more, because otherwise, especially if the Vladimir has a lead, it's going to be very tough for Ferocity to really work around that.
Yeah, no, it'll have to be the Executioner's Calling from Caitlyn. Even Morello's isn't enough grievous wounds being applied, simply because you have to get him below 40% health for that to even start. So if they decide to start team fighting, I would expect that Ferocity will avoid it at all costs until they have that Executioner's Calling. But something that you touched on as well is the fact that you have this much stronger mid-game spike coming out from Arctic. Would expect them to abuse that, start grouping up early before Caitlyn can really afford to put in money into an Executioner's Calling, and even if she does, she's then lost out somewhere else. So see how they decide to play it. We have to, of course, see how the early laning phase goes before we can really decide. And people who are massive decision makers in terms of that will, of course, be these junglers. We were talking about XJ hasn't really played this style before, or that we've seen at the very least. So I'll be very much watching this Ivern and seeing if he can get those early ganks down.
Yeah, Ivern will be, like you said, definitely can gank, but more of a farmer in those early stages, especially at that level 1, if you can somehow manage to work your way around and get that 3 buff. Although Arctic Storm, definitely an experienced team at the very least, will be certainly wary of any trickery that may come out from the Ferocity junglers. So I imagine Sankus will be, be prepared for that, and then look to apply that early Lee Sin pressure that the champion has always been very famed for, and probably the strongest jungler that Ferocity have come across this tournament. We'll see how XJ does hold up against it.
Yeah, I'll be interested. I've seen that most likely it looks like we're going into the Irish farmer stereotype for at least the start of the game here. Because I doubt they're going to bother pressuring their lanes when they do have that scaling, and when they can be punished so heavily for it with stuff like Polymorph and even the mass amounts of damage coming out from the Hemoplague past level 6.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's opportunities, especially if Sankus can find someone on the side of Ferocity just a little bit too far forward. The Lee Sin at those early levels, quite a bit of damage, and the gap closer means that they could find themselves in for a bit of success. I mean, Howl in that mid lane does have the flash and the ghost, but enough pressure might just net you the kill anyway. But like you said, we'll see if it does turn out to be a farm fest. Ferocity may be okay with that, because the Lee Sin pick with that early pressure might not be having as much of an impact as expected. But like you said, have to be very wary around that mid-game point when the comp on the side of Arctic Storm begins to amp up just a little bit more, while Ferocity might still have to hold out.
Yeah, on top of that, I touched on already the fact that Xayah has that self-peel on top of the Lulu. It'll be very difficult for them to catch out these kind of carries if the game starts going against them, and also facilitates dives with things like the Lee Sin, tanky mid-lane carries from that Vladimir, on top of the fact you can get Wild Growth anyone who goes for those. They definitely have the ability to pressure if they're ahead, so it's on Ferocity to try give as little as they can and get into that scaling comp as early as possible.
Yeah, definitely. And looking at the games that Ferocity played yesterday, I think there was the kind of risky element of their early laning phase, especially the first 5-10 minutes of the game, not being as strong as they may have liked. And the Caitlyn Karma lane will be looking to have that impact, but it might be tough to really find. A lot of it, especially in the last game we saw yesterday, was on the back of Zizzle having a huge impact in that 1v1, but against Artorias in that top side, under the moniker of Slow Thinker in this account, it might be a little bit tougher for him to find that edge, and I think that will be a big call for that macro game of Ferocity to shine. But here we are, loaded onto the Rift, just waiting for the players to get into this one for our first game of the day between Arctic Storm and Ferocity eSports. Both these teams 2 series away from making it to the UK Masters in the very first qualifier. They'll still have 3 chances after this if they are unfortunate enough to miss out, but you always want to get in on that first shot, you know, just have the spot guaranteed and make sure everything's okay.
Yeah, so far they only have 2 more wins, including this one, to get them into that qualifying spot, so they can almost taste it at this point. This game will mean a lot going forward, especially into their last qualifying game.
Yeah, definitely. Once again, it's also just good. I mean, both these teams are top 8 already in the qualifier, which is very good indicator considering there are the 8 spots in the UK Masters as a whole. So, I mean, showing that already you're early on, you're around that area is pretty good. But I mean, Arctic Storm especially are a team who will want to be getting in first time around. Just looking at the players on their roster, they'll be expecting it, and we'll see if they can do it. Ferocity, obviously the last Irish team left in the tournament on the other side, will be hoping for what can be considered the upset in this matchup. We saw them with a pretty good game yesterday, but we'll see how they hold up in today's game.
Yeah, I think Ferocity, I mean, we've talked about it before. Realistically, right now, the highest chance of making it in the UK as an Irish team, the highest ranked Irish team for quite some time, now picking up Howl into that mid lane instead of Ray. So see if this is the final change that gets them there.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, like the pedigree on the other side, we saw, I believe it was Sankus and Prosper in that ESL Premiership final not too long ago. So once again, these 2 players will be expecting some more success here, and it'll be interesting to see how they get on. Like we said, we talked about the XJ versus Sankus matchup, and it'll be a very good litmus test to see how this iteration of the Ferocity lineup matches up against the best from the UK.
Yeah, and I think that's something I've been looking forward to. Something we've all been looking forward to. Now the game continues, unfortunately, with some delays.
Yeah,
but we'll get there.
It's classic, you know. Although apparently it was UK internet from looking at the chat, from the little bit of I saw of it before I had to have it closed. So it's not the Irish for once. I mean, normally our internet is generally pretty poor, but maybe it's not us letting the side down this time.
For now, at least.
Yeah,
I have managed to stay connected also, which is obviously a massive plus.
Yeah. Your internet issues are notorious, especially recently, which has been unfortunate. But I mean,
no bad publicity either way. We'll see how we're doing.
I mean,
they have improved while my exams are going on.
That's good. That is good news, because I mean, there's nothing more annoying when you're casting and then suddenly your co-caster drops and it's just like, oh, well, I mean, I suppose being the guy who dropped is probably a little worse, but yeah, definitely.
It can go either way. We'll see.
Yeah.
Hopefully no one does. Hopefully, in fact, that person reconnects and we can start this game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to League of Legends, especially at this level. I mean, it's always good to kind of get these qualifiers for the big UK and Ireland tournaments. Because especially in these latter stages, we get to see some really good games, and both these teams looking very strong. So it's a bit of a change to the level that we're normally at on our end. So nice to see stuff around this quality of play. Yeah,
and I think so far the Irish have something of an advantage. 3 of them have bought starting items. You see,
yep,
fairly standard starting items too.
Hal has his starting items, which he forgot yesterday. So congrats to him. For remembering one of the basic tenets of League of Legends as a whole, to purchase items at level 1.
Buy items in general, also. You should continue to do so throughout the game.
Yes, but, yeah, I suppose. And I mean,
I feel like it's probably worse if you buy them at level 1 and then never buy them again.
I suppose. Yeah, if we're going completely totalitarian like that, where it's either you only get them at level 1 or you get them at all points except level 1, it's...
Speaking of which, actually, we would expect that Gragas will just pick up a bunch of Doran's rings, the normal build being the 3 Doran's ring start. So start off with a single Doran's ring, unfortunately all you can afford on that. And then first back, you tend to get 2 more, maybe a ward, and then sit in that. And it turns into quite the bully lane for a little while at least, until Zizzle can get up in terms of tankiness. And then once he gets the Tiamat and some tankiness, Shen should start to edge out, but still very unlikely many kills are going to go down in that lane.
Yeah, it's going to be... It's a weird dynamic, I think, because, I mean, Gragas is a caster in terms of his damage, but there's also the auto attack thing from the Drunken Rage, so which Shen obviously can't deny very well. But I mean, depending on how that goes, if the Gragas is in a situation where he can kind of rely on his abilities for the damage and then play around that Spirit Refuge, Artorias could find himself in a good spot. Like you said though, Shen, generally a very good duelist, especially when he starts getting those levels in and a few of the items on the board, when he can get that magic resist. So I imagine Zizzle will especially be holding out for that point.
Yeah, the issue is the whole Ferocity comp is kind of holding out for their own points, specifically about 2 to 3 items in when they really start ramping up. And in the meantime, Arctic Storm can spike earlier, don't necessarily need as many items to start grouping up. So would expect that that's going to be their plan. They're going to try pressure out these lanes. Even in the bot lane where we were talking about the Kate Karma push combo, you still have this Lulu with the Ignite, having taken Thunderlords instead of Wind Speakers, looking to bully out that Karma and Caitlyn if they get the push going.
Yes, certainly. Unfortunately, we're still stuck in this pause, and
someone's saying they're ready.
I can. Okay, you have the chat open to me. I don't, but yeah. I think I can see Hell out of the game. So I'm imagining that there is either this delay continues or there's another one in the near future, which is unfortunate. But hopefully we can get this resolved pretty soon. Like you said, wouldn't want to be stuck around this long, I think, at the very least, but definitely want to see this played. Like you said, we still have best of 3 between the two teams. Hey, there's the resume. Okay, you were right, you called it. Although we'll see.
Still a bit slow, yeah. They typed they were ready a while ago.
Most certainly, but here we are. Properly, game started, unpaused, everything ready to go. Arctic Storm versus Ferocity. Winner of this goes on to a best of 3, where they will have the chance to qualify for the UK Masters in the very first qualifier. Obviously, there's 3 more after this over the next month or so, so still a few opportunities for whichever teams miss out. But definitely, both these teams will be hoping to get it on the first try. Level 1 starts pretty defensive.
Yeah, actually, something I want to touch on is the fact that Zaya's actually gone for this Doran's shield start as opposed to the Doran's blade.
Oh, yeah.
We were talking about the Caitlyn looking for the poke. That could make it that little bit more difficult for Aserad to try poke out Svene here. So, on top of that, with the changes to Doran's shield, the fact you get the extra damage on minions, it's actually an okay starting item now for these AD carries. On top of that, you get the extra health pot, so huge amounts of sustain and safety to allow you to farm.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe just, yeah, like you said, the sustain coming in, a bit wary. There we go. I did call it. There would be another pause coming in if the other one resumed. But, yeah, like you said, the sustain coming in with that Zaya start, possibly showing that Svene is just wary of the potential bullying that could come out from the Caitlyn Karma. Even with the Lulu on board, it is very defensive coming out, so Svene just showing the lane comp coming out of Ferocity's duo, a fair bit of respect.
Yeah, on top of that, you're looking at just being, like, even if you play it perfectly, Caitlyn and Karma will poke you out regardless, so means they can farm at least until that first item comes through. And from there, it doesn't really matter what starting item you took, you should be able to just lane as per usual.
Yeah, certainly, and I was going to comment on where the junglers might be if we had that little bit of info, but right now, you do see...
Hybrids in mid lane.
Yep, it's actually going to be Jungle Orianna. Nah.
I remember when Ivern was being released that people were trying to theorize if they should play him in lane And I was like, oh, maybe his AP ratios on his W are really good, so he'll be like an Oriana-style caster. And then I was just like,
No.
no. No, his numbers did not fit that. Nothing in his kit, in fact, fit that. I don't know why people theorized it, but people like to try
it's for
things
the
like
fun, you know. It's just, hey, can we play this champion at AD carry? Nah,
that. Yeah,
not working.
They'll
but,
try. They'll try anyway.
I mean, yeah, you might as well just to see if because if who knows, maybe you find out the super secret new strategy and revolutionize the meta, and then you can say, I was the one who did that. I was the one who changed League of Legends forever. Or until they patch it anyway.
Or you could just play him where he's supposed to go. We'll see, though. Actually going to be a more standard start from XJ with the Ivern. He went for the Raptors first, but didn't smite any of his camps so far. So I think he's going to mark a few extra camps, finally smite maybe his blue, and then come around and pick up those camps as the passive just ticks around them.
Yeah, getting his early farming on, but not stepping too far forward. You can see the ward on the blue buff placed by Arctic Storm, so they would know if XJ was making a trip into the enemy jungle, which he appears to be foregoing for this first clear. So nothing too crazy coming out of XJ's Iverns to start this one off. Sankus is clear, completely uninterrupted.
Yeah, and I think it is a bit dangerous in team play to go for that Ivern steal if you don't have really, really good pushing lanes. And in this case, no lanes are pushing in favor of Ferocity. So if he did go for that invade, very easy collapse and first blood. So good call from XJ to play around the state of the lanes as they stand.
Yeah, certainly. Looking at these lanes, Vaughn taking a bit of early damage coming out from Hell here. As he gets a few more levels on that Vladimir, he should be able to sustain it up a little bit better. But nice early signs from Ferocity's mid laner that he is able to trade pretty effectively early on. Although you can see the mana bar running a little bit short here, which might turn that one around. Ivern coming down to the bottom lane, looking for a gank. Asteroid already dropped very low. The ignite onto him. He heals and flashes away. XJ arrives in now, already level 4, looking to see if he can turn this around with Svene very low. Shield on him. XJ needs to hit the root collar here to make this properly happen. Flash away from the Zaya, flash forward, root collar gonna come in, just a couple more autos will do it, and that will be first blood over to Aserad.
In the meantime, it's going to the mid lane.
Yeah, Sankus hopped in, but nothing coming there onto Hell.
Yeah, actually, what I want to touch on with that clear, you saw Ivern arrived at this massive level lead, already had level 4. It's because he went for this Raptor start, which gets you the extra XP. He didn't have to smite anything on the way, so he's able to smite the Gromp as he came off, finishing his clear. So
flash forward from Prosphere here. They're looking for Aserad, but XJ was still in the lane the whole time, and they might have caught out Sankus. Once again, the autos are able to finish it off. XJ gets the kill, and 2 on the board early for Ferocity.
And this is an ideal scenario on top of being a single Elim round. This is huge for Ferocity. If they can keep this momentum, if they can use that in that bot lane, having already picked up that pickaxe and the boots, the poke is gonna come out in that bot lane. Moby boots onto the Ivern to keep him in these lanes, to keep him moving around the map. This could be huge.
Yeah, the dream start here for Ferocity in that bottom lane. Just XJ making the gank work, and then Sankus trying to respond quickly with the sneaky play with the support, but just too many members there for Ferocity, and a risky call there from that Arctic Storm on that bottom side, not paying off.
Yeah, and you can see what Sankus actually did was he waited a while and thought that this would be the perfect time for Ivern to have backed. He shouldn't be in the lane, and it was actually the last second of recall cancelled for XJ, and they managed to pick up the kill for him.
Yes, certainly. We'll see how Ferocity play off that, and if Arctic Storm can properly shake off the negative start they had. Actually looking for the gank top lane, forcing the flash out of Artorias, but the taunt is going to connect here, going to get a good bit of damage down here, as this might be Artorias going down. His flash was already used. Couple more autos will do it. XJ going to get his second kill of the game. He is just taking over the map in these early stages.
And you have to think, if he hasn't played this style before, you gotta wonder why. They must have been practicing this in scrims, waiting for the right team to bring it out against, and it's paying off hugely for them.
2 early kills and an assist to boot. He is making this early pressure work. We talked about how the Lee Sin will be the one hoping to have that early impact, and if not, it would likely just be a farm fest between the two junglers. But I mean, XJ proving us totally wrong in this scenario with his early start. Be hoping to keep it up, and I imagine Sankus has to be feeling the pressure and be hoping to pull off some more successful ganks over the next few minutes.
Yeah, and he just hasn't seemed to find his mark yet. He went for the one in the bot lane. Having gone horribly wrong meant that the double buffs were even extended on that Ivern, which he then used to secure another kill in the top lane. Those red buff autos and the W passive early on, huge amount of damage when you're going into these lanes. And yeah, I mean, the damage won't scale, but the champion will, and the champions he's ganking for, this kind of shield comp will pop off and will scale amazingly if Ferocity can maintain momentum.
Yeah, and it is all about maintaining that momentum, because there is definitely an onus on that late game fighting for Ferocity here in this one. So there's still quite a bit of a ways before they get to that, but the goal lead that they have developed early will make the path to those later stages just a little bit easier at the very least, and Ferocity may be able to weather the Arctic Storm when it comes to that point.
You were waiting on that one. You've been sitting on it.
I swear I wasn't. That one was just...
On the other side, though, we actually do see mid laner starting to struggle in terms of farm. Howl has been pressured back. Part of this resourceless poke that Vladimir has been utilizing to his advantage pretty heavily so far. With the lost chapter, though, hopefully Howl looking to say he can at least mana sustain up, which should mean he can stay in the lane and potentially bully out, because he has landed some nice combos.
Yeah, Vaughn doing a good job of taking over that mid lane just in terms of farm. While the side lanes have been going well for Ferocity, just 1v1, Arctic Storm's mid laner has been developing himself this CS lead, and we talked about him being the big threat, especially if they can get these mid-game fights. The Vladimir will certainly be a force to be reckoned with. Could see another gank coming in on the top side, though. Artorias on the wrong side of this one, trying to get out of it, just doing the dance as Zizzle blocking off all paths. XJ is there to greet him everywhere he goes. The Gragas walking around the pillar, trying to see if there's any way possible he can get out of this one, but it does not look like an explosive cast. Oh, he gets himself a little bit of space, but taking the tower aggro means that Zizzle can get his first kill of the game.
It was an ambitious play. Didn't quite pay off, but did buy himself a lot of time with that back and forth. So, good gank by XJ. Unfortunately, Sankus just wasn't around to try cancel out that play, so meant that they could dance that as long as possible.
Yeah, definitely. I think he knew that his fate was sealed when he saw the angle the Ivern was at, and just did anything he could to, like you said, delay it as much as possible. And Sankus has made his way into the enemy jungle. I think he's on the blue buff there, so looking to take that one away would be pretty nice, considering the pressure Howl's already under. If he can't get that blue buff, could be in a nasty spot. The Hemo Plague and Shockwave going to be popped in the mid lane, but no kills coming through there, although Vaughn going to come pretty close when that Hemo Plague pops. So once again, asserting his pressure in the mid lane, but wants to be wary under that tower when Hell has the Shockwave.
Yeah, one thing to note as well is the fact that Howl was able to pick himself up red buff because of Ivern's sharing passive, which means that he will have that little bit of extra sustain just passively, which should mean he can at least match the Vladimir.
Yes, certainly a little bit behind in gold, but with that mana sustain might just be a little bit easier, especially when it comes to farming under the tower, considering how Vaughn is constantly pushing the lane in. Looking at the other lanes, Arctic Storm, despite deficits in terms of kills bottom and top. Ooh, actually Sankus might run into an XJ here. Root Collar not going to connect. Actually follows in on the resonating strike here. Out comes Daisy though, but Vaughn wants to fight this out, but Stand United is there as well. This old flash taunt is going to connect onto Sankus, using his own flash to get away, and he might just have done it. Hell, flash, ghost, can he get close enough to the Lee Sin? He cannot. Sankus making it away with just a sliver of health there.
Yeah, how with a little bit of a delayed flash, but probably wouldn't have gotten it anyway, had already popped the ghost, so a lot of summoners for nothing, unfortunately, for this mid lane, but a good attempt from Ferocity to try and maintain what has still been a really solid early game for these guys. And you were talking about how this is one of their weakest points earlier, so massive step up, see if they can use this to try get themselves that qualifying spot.
Yeah, might be seeing a gank coming in the mid lane, although I'm assuming the auto-direct camera moving away means nothing happening. Blaze, though, a lot happening to him in the bottom lane, forcing the wall growth out, though, as Svenne taking a lot of damage as he stands right up in Asarad's face. Close trade there, but in the end, I think Ferocity sustained damage coming out on top.
Yeah, I think actually Acerad could have stayed on top of that and maybe picked himself up the kill had he not backed off. And you can see Blaze is actually trying to play forward as well to match it, but just trying to play it safer in case Sankux is there, which he was.
Yeah, Sankux moving towards that bottom side, but Ferocity had an inkling that they might have been being collapsed on in that bottom lane, so back out of there before anyone from Arctic Storm can get too close. Nice map movements from them, but I think Ferocity just playing heads up and knowing that the rotation was coming in to deny them from capitalizing on a pushed Ferocity bottom lane.
Yeah, and we were talking about this Shen matchup in the top lane as well. We were expecting potentially a very passive top lane, but...
Oh, the ace in the hole is enough to finish it! The damage just almost out of nowhere from that Ferocity bottom lane gets them Ferocity's 5th kill of the game.
I mean, like, Svenne was sitting there assuming that wouldn't kill him, and I think I was pretty much ready to join him in that regard. It was extremely close, especially level 1. That ace in the hole doesn't really do a huge amount, only pickaxe having built in that Caitlyn, but again, more than enough apparently.
Yeah, just about. I was thinking that I might not finish it off either, which was probably the cause of the surprise of my voice when the kill did come in there. But that's 2 kills on this Caitlyn now. Runon's Hurricane already finished, and I imagine those raw AD items will not be long to follow. I mean, while on the other side, you can see Svenne beginning to get a few components for the items he wants to get, but even so, a bit of a ways off that Essence Reaver, and going to be lacking on attack speed as well for the near future.
Yeah, and I think we'll probably just see the standard Essence Reaver start from this Xayah. Can't imagine much else that you'd build, especially considering they are this far into it. But the Cola's paid off, considering Xayah's managed to stay roughly similar in farm. It's just now being a bit wary of the fact that
3 members of Ferocity capitalizing on this mid lane, but Vaughn might have found an angle out, especially with Prosphere nearby on that bottom side. Meanwhile, the AD carries duking it at 1v1, but big fight back in the mid lane. Shockwave only going to hit 1 though. Hemoplague not really connecting on anyone either, but Blaze could find himself going down. Asarat the first victim, and Blaze will follow, as this is a much better fight coming out of Arctic Storm. Zizzle the next focus here, trying to get away using the Shadow Dash, but I don't think he can get away fast enough. Double kill for Vaughn, and finally something working out for Arctic Storm.
Yeah, and these massive group fights, we talked about it time and time again. They have this decent early to mid spike, and now using it to their advantage and get themselves the first turret, get themselves a huge amount of kills, and that's a massive turnaround for these guys, both in terms of gold and in terms of momentum.
Yeah, definitely. And on the bottom side of the map, it was actually Asterad 1v1 by Svenne. We panned to it a little bit before we got back to the real fight. But, I mean, that gives the Xayah so much time just on that bottom side, and has completely taken down the tower almost by herself. So that's 2 towers off the back of that fight, looking like it's going to be a Mountain Drake as well. And this game has just completely flipped in the course of 90 seconds.
Yeah, and I was talking about previously about how Xayah is really strong in that 1v1, especially when you allow her to cut that distance down, which is exactly what happened to Acerad under his own tower. Thought he had that safety, but was allowing a lot of damage to go unchecked, and was sitting there just trying to get the same 1v1. A good E from Xayah really secured that one, but at the same time, it's just should never have been in that position in the first place. And realistically, he had less AD, so if you're going to allow the Xayah to sit on top of you with that W extra damage, with that just increased attack speed, using that W on top of it, you are always going to be in a rough spot.
Most certainly, and now it is Arctic Storm shooting out to a 1k goal lead, as well as that Mountain Drake that they have. And with both towers down on the bottom side of the map, not only does it open up that area for a lot of pressure, but if your team wants to dedicate a lot of resources to that top side, both the tower and the Rift Herald are there for the taking.
Yeah, we could definitely see a Rift go down here. Actually, an attempted jump by Slow Thinker. Not going to find it, but does mean they know that Ori is backed, so they'll be able to pick up that top tower for free. And Vaughn, actually.
Oh, yeah, Vaughn going to be ran into by 2. Has the Hemo play down, though, so the heal will be coming in the pool as well. Asteroid taking a lot of damage. Needs to get the distance, but it's not there. Vaughn now on a killing spree, and Blaze looking to be his next victim. Zizzle does show up, but the Vladimir can pop the coast and get away. Meanwhile, XJ very much alone as Artorias and Sankos look to capitalize on him. Daisy going to come out, but it might be a little bit too late. Redemption should slow his demise a little bit. Held there as well. Shockwave going to come through. Maybe they can get Sankos out of this, but he has safeguarded at the back, so he should be just fine, and connects with the Sonic Wave. Resonating strike, is it going to follow? Not looking like it. The whole time, though, they had Svene pushing the top lane. He took 2 towers, and this is an even bigger lead developing here for Arctic Storm. Now he wants to fight it out with the 2 towers down, but Ferocity staying their hand here. But Arctic Storm, after that one fight they won, now just going from strength to strength.
3k gold lead at the moment. Could look for this Rift Herald. Probably not the time for it. They can simply back, make sure they have good vision control of it, and then immediately turn on it. And it looks like they don't even really need that for these tower takes. Especially, one of the things we didn't touch on when we were talking about the strength of this Xayah pick is, with that W, especially early on, one of the strongest tower takers in the game. Much like Tristana, in the sense that you can just have this mass amount of extra damage that just hits the towers based on your AD, on top of the fact it gives you attack speed. Really, really solid if you need someone to push down those towers, / if you can get a solo kill under a tower, means that bot lane tower was always going to go down, but especially if you leave him in the top lane just unchecked while you're attempting to fight in the jungle, you're going to lose more than one.
I mean, I'm pretty sure 5 minutes ago we saw Ferocity with about a 1.5k goal lead. Currently, Arctic Storm are now close to 3k gold ahead. They have just completely flipped this game in a very short space of time. And I mean, like I said, all it took was that one fight, and since then, their tower taking game has been completely on point. They have known exactly what to do after every kill they've been able to get. And as a result, they now come into this mid-game point with quite a significant goal lead.
And this is what we expected as well. We were talking about how they should try give away as little as possible from Ferocity's side, but one quick team fight ends up turning into a lot of towers, and now potentially Rift Herald, which, again, more towers you would imagine.
Yeah, definitely. Just pop that in the mid lane and watch him go, and see how many towers he can take. Throughout the tournament so far, people have been using this Rift Herald to pretty good effectiveness, and I imagine it'll be no different here for Arctic Storm. You can see Artorias in the bottom lane taking a few chunks from Zizzle, but has the wave pretty pushed in, so he can't afford to back off and go down there if he wants to stop it. With the teleport still up for the Gragas, no issue him staying in a side lane and then TPing to those fights.
Yeah, and I think we're now going to see that Ferocity are being pressured from the spikes they were looking for with these champions. See if they can hold on till then, but with Rift Herald ready to go, you have to imagine Arctic Storm are just looking for one more fight like that and then push in to break the inhib line.
Yeah, definitely, and this could be it actually. XJ caught out a little bit there by Vaughn, but able to get back to his team without sustaining too much damage. However, if they can get that minion wave pushed in, they may just have the damage to take it with the Rift Herald if they choose to use him at that point. Still looking to keep pressure on the top side. That is most certainly Vaughn's domain right now, and Zizzle actually playing very close back to his tower. Might just be looking for a recall here, but even so, not choosing to play too far up the lane and try put any pressure on this tower. So currently the map completely being run by Arctic Storm.
He's actually backed off just in case he needs to ult. He doesn't want that cancelled by the Gragas, but he realizes his team now not in a position to attempt to pressure anything at all. He has to just try back off because he can win the split push, but as soon as he commits to it, that's when Arctic Storm can just commit themselves and start looking for it.
Vaughn looking for the fight here. Has the slow into Hell. Hemo Plague will not be enough to pop the Orianna, but it's definitely enough to send Hell packing, and with that, the Rift Herald's just going to hammer away. Daisy in response going to be brought out, so can we battle the minions? But XJ taking so much damage to start this off. Redemption coming down, Stan United used as well, and a lot burned by Ferocity just to keep themselves alive. They might want to get a kill on this. Zizzle going to jump into the back, see if he can find Sankos, but the flash from the Lee Sin means he is A-OK. Nothing lost there by Arctic Storm, apart from a few cooldowns. They have had Artorias on that bottom side the whole time. Teleport from Zizzle right back down to the bottom lane to keep the tower alive, and Ferocity having to expend every single cooldown to keep this base alive.
Sanga's almost going down, though. Has to smite the Raptors to get away from that. But huge amount of damage went on that top lane tower, but wasn't enough to take it. Was expecting they would group on top of the Rift Herald. Deciding not to could have cost them an earlier inhib, or at least inhib tower. So Ferocity for now, managing the turtle. See how long they can hold it.
Yeah, not losing any more structures for the time being, but that health in the top lane tower might just draw the attention of Arctic Storm if they want to push over towards that top side, as well as that inner tower in the bottom lane. A lot of areas they can apply pressure if they want. They still have to teleport on their Gragas, so plays around the map are certainly an option. And Ferocity is seemingly just withdrawing into their shell, playing very, very defensively, considering how this game has turned.
Yeah, and you can see the Morellos having been finished on the Orianna means they do have some grievous wounds, but Vaughn, very hard to chunk out for this Ferocity side. Still no 2-item spike for Orianna, but
Shockwave coming in there, looking to see if they can catch out Prospero, but using the wall growth, he is able to get himself to safety. Getting the Lulu cooldown, but I mean, Hell's Shockwave is going to be down as well, so Ferocity trying to make the death push happen, nothing coming of it.
Yeah, and they need picks like that. They need to use everything they have to get single picks, or else they're just going to slowly start losing this game. So I appreciate what Hell was looking for, but wild growth in the middle, or maybe even just not the target you're looking for.
Zizzle, I don't know if Artorias knew he was standing behind the wall there. Ninja Shen being sneaky, but even so, he is able to make sure Hell can pick up the blue buff for himself. However, there are a few members on that bottom side, and that's going to be Arctic Storm pulling the trigger on the call for Baron here. They already have it to a little bit over half health. Teleport going to be used by Artorias as well, so he might have a good angle on the backline of Ferocity here, but they definitely know what's going down. Big Hemo play! Going to hit 4, and Vaughn just wants to go straight for that backline here. They might have the damage to take him out, but the heals means he can get away. XJ seeing if he can get to the Baron pit. They do have the first kill onto Prospero. Now trying to get into the pit. Can he make the smite steal happen? No, he cannot. That will be secured by Vaughn of all people, who gets XJ as well. Ferocity getting a couple kills, but I'm not sure they can make anything happen, as it is a double for the Vladimir. In the end, a 2-for-2 trade, and it is Arctic Storm who come away with the Baron.
I don't think XJ should have smited there. I don't think he realized, though, that the smite had already been used from Sankus. So I think he was just holding on to it in the hopes that he could get there. Realized he was going super low, decided to go for the smite anyway, which meant Vaughn was able to just quickly pick it up on the side with his AoE. So maybe just a slight mistake there, which could be hugely costly. And those are the ones you got to feel bad about, because it's not even massively his fault. They were in a horrible position to begin with, but they decided to go for it. Vaughn did huge amounts of damage to the back line, which meant that the fight was all over the place for Ferocity. And again, it's Vaughn's Vladimir showing up in all of these fights, which is really carrying Arctic Storm through. And considering they've picked it before, you gotta wonder, maybe this was something that Ferocity should have looked for in the ban phase.
Most definitely. 5-0 and 0. A Hemo Plague at that Baron pit was the absolute dream for the Vladimir, and you can just sustain for days when you have the ultimate down on that many people. Maybe seeing if they can get a pick onto him here. Hemo Plague not off cooldown yet, but he has the pool and is able to get back to the safety of his team. Sankos maybe angling for the re-engage there, not able to find it, but now with the Baron buff, now with the waves pushing in, this could be Ferocity facing to lose a lot of towers.
And you can see Vlad actually pressuring XJ off his own buffs and his own camps, just taking everything to keep himself ahead and his team ahead. With this Baron buff, you gotta think Arctic Storm are looking to take an inhib tower here at least. It's on Ferocity. Can they find the team fight?
Yeah, keep an eye on Vaughn in that top lane. We'll be pushing those minions into an already low tower. Ferocity right now, a lot of their defense actually focused around that mid lane, but they've lost the bot inner tower here, and I think Svene, with the shields on him, should be able to take the one in the middle lane as well, pushing towards that base. But top lane has to be the focus now for Ferocity with that tower already so low, and you can see how and XJ moving over there. We'll see where Arctic Storm choose to apply the pressure.
It looks like they're going for the standard 1-3-1 just to keep the Shen busy as well, because they don't want him joining the fights if at all possible. So you have the Gragas there who's able to cancel his ult if he decides to go with it, but it looks like the tower's going to go.
Yeah, Terra's going to go, and the fight's going to start here. XJ and Hell going to be caught out by the Hemoplague. Shockwave, Stan United as well, used onto Hell to make sure that he stays alive at the back, but they've already lost their jungler. Vaughn on very low health, but is able to get at the back. Astrad, the long auto attack range, forces the wall growth out, but he's standing a little bit too far forward, and Sankas looks for the re-engage. Not going to be able to finish him off, but Ferocity sitting with very low health bars across the board, and Vaughn looking right to the back line here. Exhaust onto him is probably not going to be enough. Ferocity once again barely survive, but they just have to watch the inhibitor go down. Arctic Storm just bringing way too much pressure as they enter the Ferocity base.
It was a 4v5 as well, which means they get another inhib tower in that bot lane. Slow Thinker, not really pressured at all. Again, slow pusher as well, but doesn't really matter when his team can fight for so long and manage to potentially win out in that 4v5.
Yeah, Artorias just sticking in the bot lane the whole time, keeping to the split push, and the rest of his team doing the job that needed to be done on the opposite side of the base here. He's still sticking around, actually. Ferocity might send a couple of members up to try catch him, but Explosive Cask is up, so there are all the escape tools that Artorias will need to make it out. Arctic Storm, though, not wanting to overstay their welcome, already have taken one inhibitor and the tower from another. So the damage most certainly done, and things looking very dire for Ferocity.
And it really is a game of one fight so far, you know? You had that big, massive team fight in the mid lane, and suddenly a game that was going relatively well for Ferocity. It was 4-0 in terms of kills. They hadn't pulled any massive objective leads, but they were slowly getting there. Suddenly completely turns on its head. Even those early kills were already being kept even, so as soon as that fight went down, everyone was in a position from Arctic Storm to group up and to pressure down this team that needs so much more time to scale that they're just not going to get this game.
Yeah, definitely. They're hitting those points now where maybe they can start doing the damage in these fights. Asurad getting the items that he needs. That Executioner's Calling as well will slightly limit the impact that Vaughn has, but given the deficit they already face, you might just be able to say that the damage has been done by Arctic Storm. They have enough of a lead that the scaling that Ferocity are maybe benefiting from now isn't really going to matter, and it's going to be tough for them to fight no matter how well their champions move on to the late game.
Yeah, and you have this massive amount of damage on this Vlad carry as well. Actually foregoing the usual Hextech Protobelt start, which means he has more damage to things like the Ivern, who builds so much health or who builds a mostly health-based build. Okay, here's the last fight.
Explosive Cast going to hit Shockwave as well onto him, but Artorias able to just boot scoot over the wall with the Wild Growth on him means he'll just be fine. Daisy's chase may just be in vain here. Vaughn, meanwhile, the whole time was on that bottom inhibitor, able to take it, uses the Ghost to get to safety. Sizzle takes so much damage as he goes in to start this one off. Vaughn a little bit on his own, but hits the Hemoplague onto practically everyone there from Ferocity, will be able to get the kill onto Zizzle and sends the rest of Ferocity running for the hills. Double kill for the Vladimir. The rest a bit too far away, but with the CC coming in from Artorias might be close enough. Triple for Vaughn in this fight. His 8th kill of the game. This Vladimir has been so integral to everything Arctic Storm have been able to do, and now with only 2 members of Ferocity left alive, this is probably the game.
Yeah, and you gotta think, Vaughn, can he get the Penta? He's gonna look for it. And Svenne is going to make sure it just doesn't happen. It would have been pretty close regardless, but it would have been pretty ambitious regardless, more to the point. But really clean game, especially from Vaughn here. Arctic Storm showing why they were looking at as the favorites coming into this one. And even though Ferocity showed up in the early game and probably did the Irish proud, just could not match, especially the Vlad, but realistically Arctic Storm's macro movements once they got that lead.
Yeah, definitely. So it will be Arctic Storm moving on to the next stage, a best of 3 to determine whether or not they are getting through to the UK Masters in this first qualifier. Stick around because we will be hopefully bringing you a game from the next round as well. I'll be back very shortly.
Good luck, guys.